Hello, my name is Charity Wottrich, and today we are going to be starting a series about my growing up in a cult. Over the next few weeks, I'm thinking it's going to be a six-parter, but we will see. I will be sharing with you that adventure in video format. Adventure is probably the wrong word, but bear with me. I will be sharing with you my upbringing and experience with Branhamism. So if you haven't heard of it already, that's what I'll be talking about in this video. So to start, I just want to answer, what is Branhamism? Wow, I can't even say it. Branhamism, or as it's also known by, the Message, not to be confused with the Message Bible. So without further ado, let's dive into that. So in this video, I'm going to be answering 3 questions about Branhamism. One is, I gotta just say the Message because I feel like I'm tripping over my words when I say Branhamism. So, what is the Message is one question. And then 2 is, how do I know it's a cult? And 3 is, what are some core doctrines or unique doctrines to it? As I said, the first one is, what is Branhamism? What is the Message? So it all started with a Baptist preacher who turned Pentecostal, who had a ministry in basically like the 50s and 60s is when he gained his popularity. He had healing campaigns and he brought in a lot of crowds apparently. So that's when it all started. And it has since evolved from that with people carrying on his legacy through tapes. So he recorded all his sermons, and those sermons people see as people, and by people I just mean Message believers, believe that to be on par with scripture. So basically they think he is the prophet of the end times, and so any words that he said are words from God. I obviously don't believe that, hence why I wouldn't be calling it a cult if I believed that, but what a Message believer would typically believe, and what I used to believe, is that his words are on par with scripture, if not more important in some cases, because they are more relevant for this time. So that is just a basic, very basic surface level what it is. I would say that it has a few million people. The sources for that are hard to tell. Some of those can be seen by, how many people actually are buying Message tapes, but we can't know for certain because there's not really a study, as far as I know, on how many people ascribe to this, but I'm pretty sure, based on some information that I don't have a source for, it's like close to 2 or 3 million. I personally knew or saw several thousands of people, so I at least know that from experience that I've seen those people. How do I know it is a cult? I will dive more into this in future videos, but for now I just want to give a short answer to that question. So some of the basic things of why it's wrong are the false prophecies, so prophecies that didn't come to pass, and then secondly, it is the faked or just false healings that supposedly happened but actually didn't. And then thirdly, I would say his dishonest teachings. So William Branham was caught in a lie many times, but because of the fact that it happened in the 50s and 60s, although it was recorded on tapes, people couldn't go and search the tapes. So, but now everything's transcribed online. We live in this age of information where we can actually just search online all these different things that he said and that are recorded on tapes, and you can see how his stories don't line up with each other in drastic ways. So as I said, I won't dive into all of that, but those are some of the basic, why is it false? Why do I think it's a cult? But there's also the dictionary definition of a cult that I'd like to read for you. So this one is from the Oxford. It says, a system of religious veneration and devotion directed toward a particular figure or object, as in the cult of St. Olaf, and a relatively small group of people having religious beliefs or practices regarded by others as strange or sinister, as in a network of Satan worshiping cults. So that's like the dictionary, Oxford Dictionary definition. But I don't think that it's a complete definition, because when I was in psychology class, they actually had a section that covered cults and some of the tactics that cults use, such as shunning, such as gaslighting, scapegoating, fear tactics, all these different things like isolation from the outside world, information controlling. All these different elements also contribute to it being a cult. So it's not just the dictionary definition. It's not just that this guy was dishonest and his prophecies didn't come to pass and all that. Like, we can tell from scripture that he was a false prophet. Peter 2:1-3 says, "But false prophets also arose among the people, just as there will be false teachers among you who will secretly bring in destructive heresies, even denying the master who bought them, bringing upon themselves swift destruction, and many will follow their sensuality, and because of them the way of truth will be blasphemed. And in their greed they will exploit you with false words. Their condemnation from long ago is not idle, and their destruction is not asleep." Deuteronomy 18:21-22 says, "And if you say in your heart, 'How may we know the word that the Lord has not spoken?' When a prophet speaks in the name of the Lord, if the word does not come to pass or come true, that is a word that the Lord has not spoken. The prophet has spoken it presumptuously. You need not be afraid of him." So there are a lot of specific prophecies that William Branham made that did not come to pass. So if you set aside all this stuff about what is a cult and just look at the fact that, just look at scripture as your guide, you can see, using these scriptures, that William Branham was a false prophet. And I believe that the Bible is the standard of truth. So if the Bible tells me that this guy is a false prophet, I'm going to believe the Bible before I believe this man. So with that, I'm not going to dive into all those false prophecies. Some people have very well documented them with quotes, and I'm actually going to throw that link in there. I believe it's Seek Ye the Truth. They have done an amazing job, seriously amazing. I wouldn't redo the work because they've done an amazing job of compiling those different prophecies. So that's one part that if you're interested in, if you have been in that cult or you know somebody who has, maybe you want to actually look into the specific prophecies that didn't come to pass. But I'll leave that up to you. I won't take up the video's time with that. Okay, lastly, what are some specific doctrines that make Branhamism stick out, that are a part of it, that are not just a part of normal Christianity? A few of those things are the serpent seed A few of those things are the serpent seed doctrine, the curse of Ham doctrine, and the stature of a perfect man doctrine. These are just basically heretical doctrines. I don't know how else to say it. I, again, won't dive into those right now. If you're interested, I will put links in the description so you can read up on what those doctrines are all about. But those are just a few. Another huge thing that was a part of Branhamism were the legalistic extra-biblical rules. So, for instance, I, as a woman, was not allowed to pierce my ears. Oh, hello. Yes, I wasn't allowed to pierce my ears. I wasn't allowed to cut my hair. I had hair that was like over 4 feet long. So if you think my hair is long now, you have no idea. But I wasn't allowed to pierce my ears, cut my hair, wear makeup, or wear any top that was below the collarbone, or like, yeah, 2 fingers below the collarbone, I think was the official rule in my church. So this would have to be right there. But that was one thing. And then also we had to wear skirts or dresses that were below our knee, no slit, no tattoos. I mean, obviously, if you're doing the other rules, why not throw that in? Always having short sleeves, never sleeveless. So if you saw my last video, whoops. But yeah, always short sleeves, and then like pretty much just like watching out for any skin showing anywhere. And no pants, you know, like you had to wear those like more feminine, supposedly that was like part of the reasoning, more feminine articles of clothing. And then for men, the rules weren't as strict, but they still had it. Like they weren't allowed to wear shorts. They had to wear like pants that were full length, at least in front of the ladies. And then they, you know, they couldn't take their shirt off, you know, similar to how women couldn't wear swimsuits. They had to be like fully covered. And then for men, they had to keep their hair short, clean shaven, and so just some basic things like that. Obviously no makeup, piercings, or tattoos for men either. And so those were some of the rules that made it stand out, and there were a lot of expectations placed on people not to, like, how do I say this? Education was highly discouraged, especially for women, but also for men. Women were more just like expected to be housewives and mothers and have a quiver-full home. So if you don't know what that means, it basically means have as many babies as you can. That's kind of what that doctrine fits under. So yeah, a lot of like those things really made you stick out. If you're a part of the message, you look like you were, you know, a part of a very legalistic, strict religion. A lot of people growing up would ask me if I was all kinds of things, you know, not usually like Christian wasn't their first go-to. Oh, are you a Christian? It would be like, oh, are you Mennonite? Are you Mormon? Are you Jehovah's Witness? Are you something else? You know, they wouldn't be saying, are you a Christian? Like when they were assuming like what religion I was a part of. So those are the 3 questions that I wanted to answer. Just a basic, what is Branhamism? How do I know it was false or a cult? And then thirdly, what are some core doctrines or things that stuck out about Branhamism? So I hope you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned because next week I'm going to be diving into my childhood, growing up in Branhamism, and then we're going to go from there. So if you don't want to miss an episode, I suggest you subscribe and or sign up to my email list, and that way you won't miss anything. If you really can't wait, you can also binge read my memoir, Where the Willow Weeps, which I'll leave a link to in the description. In that I'll just tell you everything. It's in ebook or, well, Kindle format as well as paperback, so you can have your options there. And I have nothing else for you today. You'll have to tune in next week to hear other parts of my story. If you have any questions, things you'd like me to talk about, please leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. Leave me a like if you've enjoyed this video, and of course, don't forget to subscribe. Bye!